You live to outside Harris County Jail. It's inside this building. AJ Armstrong Jr. is waking up this morning, serving the first night of his life sentence with a chance of parole in 40 years. Thank you so much for streaming KPRC 2 Plus now. I'm Zach Lajway. We're going to spend time this morning focusing on one of the biggest headlines. Antonio Armstrong Jr. found guilty of murdering his parents. KPRC 2 showed you the moment he was taken into custody to begin his life sentence. Our team has covered this case extensively throughout the past several months. The Bench, our exclusive coverage, a multi-platform experience that brings you inside the murder trial of AJ Armstrong.
Good morning. We are live as live can be downtown. Courthouse right behind us where a lot of activity is going to be happening.
Hey everyone, this is the Bench exclusive interview here with Harvey Armstrong.
Trials are won or lost well before the first witness ever hits the witness stand, final arguments, or a verdict.
That is right. He was convicted. It took 3 trials to do that. Real one was inside the courtroom.
Quite the process. Prosecutors got the conviction on their third try. The first 2 trials ended with hung juries. We've spent the last several weeks taking you inside this case through our exclusive coverage experience called The Bench. And now I want to introduce you to the team members. Rowan, I'll let you do the honor.
Yeah, hey, good morning everyone. So this is part of the Bench team. There's so many of us here behind the scenes that aren't with us today that's put a lot of work into all of this. I am Rowan Blogan as we introduce ourselves down the line here.
Hi, I'm Brian Weiss. I'm KPRC 2's legal analyst.
I'm Nifa Saavedra, digital content specialist.
And I'm Jason Wynn. I'm the investigative producer, and one of the great honors is to work with some of these folks. And you know, we also have some folks that, like Rowan said, like Letitia Quinones-Hollins, she was also on the bench. Well, so we have to say plenty of thanks to all of the team members that got in on this. But I know, Zach, you're itching to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, you know, this has been fascinating to watch. I know so much hard work has gone into this. You guys have done an amazing job at doing this and giving justice to this major assignment. I know it wasn't an easy foot, and so you should be very, very proud. We are very proud of you guys. Rowan, I want to start with you. You know, it's not very often news organizations will dedicate a reporter, let alone a whole team of reporters, to one case. We did just that. Bring us through this experience, the process of what these past several weeks have been like.
Yeah, of course. I've heard people say, why are we putting so much into this case? Well, this has happened 2 trials before this third one. A lot of the community, and I'm sure anyone here will say the same, a lot of the community members have opinions and a lot of curiosity throughout all of this. So I think it was, for the station, it was important to try to give all coverage to it, explain everything that's happening in the courtroom before it, so the community can have a full picture, especially since cameras weren't allowed in this trial. So there was no way for them to know but to trust in all of our reporting to say this is what's happening that you can't see right now. So I'm grateful that the station, our teams, allowed us to do this work.
And just to piggyback off of that, because we got stopped out in public. Brian's gotten stopped. I've gotten stopped. You know, people talking about AJ, is he innocent? Is he not? I mean, it's been a conversation even in our newsroom of what people actually feel on this case. And for a lot of folks, like Rowan said, it's been 7 years. In this trial alone, we've been on, Rowan and I have both been on it for the last 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months. Also, though, factoring into this assignment is playing catch up a little bit. You know, I think the only one that was around for the previous 2 trials on this team here today with us is you, Brian.
Well, that's because I'm certainly older than everybody in this building. But it's been, first of all, an honor and a pleasure to work with this team. Secondly, our coverage was second to none. We were able to check every box on every level. Because like Jason said, this is a case that has resonated with all segments of this community for a very long time. And everything reached critical mass yesterday. As anybody that's tried to do live TV knows, there's no user manual, and I was incredibly proud of the way that we handled it, but not surprised at all with the fact that there was an afternoon verdict, Zach.
I'm glad you brought yesterday up because I want to describe and go into detail on how yesterday played out, starting with what happened around lunchtime. Who wants to take that?
Well, I mean, I can tell you I was out in the hallway during all of this, and, you know, all of a sudden you hear a ding, and everybody's like, well, is that one bell? Is that two bells? Because in the hallway, you can't really hear it. And Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Usually if a jury rings one bell, they have a question for the judge and to see something. But when you hear two bells, then you know there's a verdict. I don't think this jury rang two bells, but everybody had the knowledge that, hey, this feels different. It's just not the same.
The family was all there. AJ was there. Everyone kind of looked nervous, and his attorneys was just coming over like, I think we have a verdict. I think we have a verdict. So we were just all on the edge of our seats because we knew something was happening.
And I'll tell you this, you know, and I got this from multiple people yesterday. Right before the verdict came down, it appeared prosecutors John Jordan and Ryan Trask fist bumped each other. So that was another indication that something serious
Before the verdict was read.
Before the verdict came down.
And they took AJ and his family out the room, well, AJ's attorneys, and it's kind of like they prepared him for what was to come. I'm not sure that they knew exactly what was coming, but they prepared him. And they were standing behind him, like holding him up, thinking like he was going to be overwhelmed with emotion. So I definitely think that they knew what was going to come.
And you could hear Kate crying.
His wife.
Well, I was on standby until mid-afternoon yesterday here at the station. I had to stay here, and by the time I got home, I had received text messages saying there was a verdict, and so I immediately turned on our live stream, and I listened to it. I saw that reaction, and you could hear crying, the emotions in the courtroom.
She started crying even before, like as soon as they start saying it was a verdict, she was just like overwhelmed with emotion. And even when they read the verdict, he just looked back at her and said, like, it's okay. It's going to be okay.
We saw AJ walk out of the courtroom. He gestured. It appeared to me from at home watching that he went like this.
Yeah.
What was that gesture, and who was it to?
His wife.
Yeah. He was pretty much saying, "I love you all." Like, and he pointed, because the whole family was right there in the back, in that back corner there, and the grandparents were crying. I mean, it was an emotional time for him. But you kind of see Kim Ogg.
Well, and that's why I asked, because she was right there in the corner.
But if you look at the point, you'll see Rick DeToto right behind him, just nodding his head, staring in the same direction.
Right.
And you can tell that there was no comment made for Kim Ogg.
I was sitting right next to his family, and he locked eyes with his wife when he was leaving. Like, he was definitely talking to his wife and talking to his family, because she was like overwhelmed, and he was like, it's okay. He was like telling her like, it's gonna be okay.
And you have to, I want to make note, like, the family is still trying to process all of that. That's what that emotion was yesterday. For the last few years, nearly a decade, they've been with AJ throughout this whole thing, supporting him. So they still need that time to process everything that's happened and gone on in these last few weeks of this trial. And I think you could see that's what was happening yesterday, trying to process and understand all of this.
But make no mistake, Zach, of all the things that law school teaches us, it teaches us so few things that matter. They don't teach you how to get paid, they don't teach you how to do live TV, and they don't teach you how to get a family or a defendant ready for a one-word verdict. There is no way that I can begin to tell our viewers what that's like, because I've been on the winning end and I've been on the losing end. And the only thing I can really liken it to, everybody, is when we were kids on the playground growing up, if somebody snuck up on you and punched you in the stomach,
It's that moment of
and
surprise.
you lost your breath. That's really the only thing that I can describe it as, guys.
And to build off of that just a little bit there, Zach, you know, we've gotten really close with all the players. I would say everyone on this team has gotten really close with the prosecutors. One of the prosecutors, John Jordan, his mom watches the bench. He told me about that. So, I mean, we've gotten really close with them. We've also gotten close with the defense attorneys, but the family's also there. And I think one thing that really point out to what you're saying, Brian, is you've got 3 parents who'll never see their mom and dad, or never see their son and daughter again. You've also got a sister that's never going to see her parents, and arguably never see her brothers again. Then you've got a wife who's got to raise a little kid by herself, and the only way that that kid's going to see his dad is through a glass window. Yeah. So that's the real cold, hard facts about this case.
I was talking with Rilwan earlier this morning when he arrived to the station about just this. You know, AJ Armstrong Jr. woke up yesterday morning, perhaps in his own bed. You know, he was able to touch his child, maybe pet his dog or pet cat goodbye, whatever it be. He doesn't have that opportunity this morning. Brian, I wanted to ask you, having covered several cases throughout your tenure, were you surprised on how quickly this third jury reached the verdict in this case?
You know, Zach, speed in the context of jury deliberations is relative. There's a rule of thumb that basically says 1 hour of deliberation for every day of testimony. So really viewed against that backdrop, this wasn't all that surprising. The fact that this jury wanted to work through lunch, the fact that, as we learned at the presser yesterday from the prosecutors, this jury had flip charts, that they were already on their way to organizing to try to expedite and streamline the process, tells me volumes. I think the defense knew that when this jury came back at 3:30, 3:45 yesterday, that the news was not going to be good.
One question I had watching our coverage, do we know what AJ has been up to since 2016? How he has spent most of his days?
I mean, I don't know a lot, but I do know that he did work. He was taking care of his wife and his kid, you know, and the family was there. He was still involved in a lot of the church activities and things of that nature, but I don't really think we can really get into what he was actually doing other than he had the support of his family.
Ninfa, I know you had a really unique opportunity blogging about this this case from inside the courtroom. What has that experience been like, building those relationships from inside that courtroom with that room full of characters?
Yeah, I think it was very important because I think a lot of people had misconceptions about the case and didn't know the details. So I think that my main focus was really getting all of the details out from the prosecution side and the defense's side. So I really wanted to tell their stories inside the courtroom because we couldn't have cameras there. So I really wanted to get every detail that I could into my blogs and really explain what was happening inside the courtroom, like almost take you there. And that's what I tried to do with the blogs each day.
Bring the viewers, bring the readers there. Jason, I know it's through our commitment, the commitment that you guys all made to this assignment, the bench, that you had access to players. What was that experience like, getting to talk with them, hearing things they were saying about our coverage?
Well, I will say this. I mean, obviously I already let out that John Jordan's mom watches this, so hi, Miss Jordan. But one of the things I will say is, you know, I've been doing this probably half as long as Brian has been doing legal analysis and stuff. But
he's now a lawyer. That's what he's trying to tell you.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to remember that you can't get too ingrained in this, that you're a journalist, that you are supposed to share both sides. And when you're committed to a project for 4 months, you know, it's easy to try to, you know, feel one way or another. You know, we've had attorneys from both sides talk to us about our coverage. And that's when we started to know we're doing it right. Because when you're hearing the bickering from both sides, from multiple of them, like, then you know you're doing your job. So we just focused on that. And I made sure that the team was able to focus on that because we moved along. But building those relationships are key. Rowan has an interview later today with the uncle, the great uncle Harvey Armstrong, I was going to say Jr. there. But, you know, we're going to continue our coverage and continue talking to these folks because there's still a story to be told here.
Yeah. Several.
Yes.
For that fact. I'm so glad you brought that up. That's what's next for us in our coverage. Brian, I want to ask you, what's next on the legal side of things?
Well, the A word, this is going to be appealed to one of the 2 courts of appeals here in Houston, one of the 14 mid-level courts of appeals that hear civil and criminal cases from Harris County and 9 other counties. It's a practical matter, somebody who's been doing this since literally the Reagan administration. A typical convicted defendant's chances of succeeding on appeal, Zach, are not good. Usually right around 5%. And it's not just that there were mistakes that were made, because everybody who didn't sleep through civics recognizes that you're not entitled to a perfect trial. You're entitled to a fair trial. And as somebody, again, who has done this for a very long time in a lot of high-profile cases, for AJ to succeed on appeal, to get that proverbial legal do-over, he's got to show that there were serious legal mistakes. Guilt or innocence is no longer an issue. If you walk into the Court of Appeals and say the jury believed the wrong witness, they're going to talk about you like a dog, as they should. You have to show a serious legal mistake or mistakes that were properly objected to, that impacted the integrity, the fairness of the trial. And unless and until you can show that, you're not going to have any chance at all. But what's interesting is beyond the first appeal, there is something called the writ of habeas corpus. And if you've ever seen my license plate, it says habeas. Basically, that's the final attempt to overturn a conviction based upon prosecutorial misconduct, newly discovered evidence, or more commonly, ineffective assistance of counsel. The fancy legal term from my lawyer, dropped the ball. I don't care who you are or what you do, but doing this, as long as I've done it, I've raised claims of ineffective assistance against some really, really good lawyers who everybody on this panel knows. I don't think it's going to be a secret that at some point, somewhere down the road, if AJ doesn't succeed on the first appeal, there'll be a claim, perhaps, later on down the road, that this defense team, however well-intentioned and passionate, may have made a mistake or two.
We will be watching. They are wrapping me, but I do have one more quick question for you. I know they're very separate, two separate things. The civil suit, though, does this conviction weigh upon that at all? What do we expect here?
Zach, apples, oranges.
Okay.
Exactly. I don't think one has any bearing on the other. And I think if you had 5 dimes to bet at Caesars in Vegas, I'd take the under on this.
Okay. Brian, Ninfa, Jason, Rowan, amazing job. Thank you very much for coming on the show this morning. We do appreciate it. This coverage was a team effort, as you know, but it does not end here. Head on over to our website, clicktohouston.com/thebench, and get ready to go into a rabbit hole. We have everything from the first trial to the final verdict.